Hello and welcome to this Friday afternoon here at Cloud8 Summit. Punctual as a Swiss clock, we are starting the last session of the day, which is hosted by me. Fabio Bonolom is my name. We are talking today about sensitivity labels and how they affect our daily life and how they affect how we work together and collaborate together in our Microsoft 365 environment. So let's dive into the topic directly. I will quickly introduce myself a little bit longer. So as you know, who is talking to you today? I'm a team leader for the productivity team at Red IT Switzerland. This is a Swiss Microsoft partner. I'm a Microsoft MVP in the category of Copilot. So of course, we will also look into how sensitivity labels will work with Copilot. I do have a YouTube channel. I have my own blog, also my own podcast, which I host as well on my YouTube channel. And on the right-hand side, you see a QR code, which will lead you to my LinkedIn profile, where I'm happy to connect with you and happy to help if there are some questions or some concerns regarding Copilot M365 or Microsoft Purview. Yeah, but we are not talking about myself today. We are talking about sensitivity labels. So let's dive into the topic itself, into the agenda. I'd like to structure my sessions that way that I want to cover some fundamentals, some basics first, like licensing and basic configuration, best practices. And of course, I have prepared a little demo for you where I will showcase you how this sensitivity label works in our user interface of Microsoft 365. Then I have prepared some challenges and best practices that I come across in my projects that I face with customers. And as I already told you, we will dive a little bit into how Copilot works with sensitivity labels. And in the end, we should have a little bit time with Q&A. So if you have any questions, just feel free to write in the chat. I have it in sight. So if some questions arise, feel free to use the chat. At this point, I want to thank Drago and Rolf for organizing Cloud8. I'm very happy to be part of this summit the second time in a row. And thanks again for your trust in me. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, so let's dive into the topic, basic and licensing. What are sensitivity labels? What are we talking about? So here we are talking about to classify data, and the data classification means that the confidentiality of data is being named. And what does that mean? So it means that we are not just classifying if a data is secret, confidential, internal, external, but we can also configure some automatic impacts that restrain end users from certain actions that they can perform on their data. So, for example, we can control the access not only for external guests, but also for our internal people and our organization through encryption. So the encryption part, this is the main focus of sensitivity label, because as soon as I control the access in some sort, the data will be encrypted. And also another part or important part of configuring this kind of labels is the content labeling. So we have the possibility to showcase that there is a label that can be some header, that can be a footer, that can be also a watermark with the unique principal ID of the user. So the email address will be shown as a watermark in a document, in a meeting, for example, in an email. There is just a header that will be showcased because we have some complex issues and complex differentiations in the configurations itself. But there can be also some obligation that can be set for the users themselves. So, for example, not only do I configure how the label should work, but I can configure how users can interact with it. So, for example, if I want to change a label or downgrade a label, I can set that the user has to justify why he changes the label before changing the label, or I can set a default label for each document that is being created in a SharePoint site, for example. And the labels lay the foundation for further protective measures within Microsoft Purview, because we have data loss prevention policies, for example. We have communication compliance. We have different solutions that we can use based on sensitivity labels, but we will not dive into these kind of topics today. Now, when we are talking about sensitivity labels, this solution in Microsoft Purview is called information protection. And there are two kinds of sensitivity labels. The first kinds are the group labels. And as the name already states, group labels can be applied to Teams and SharePoint sites, to Microsoft 365 groups, and as well to Loops workspaces. So everything that has to do with some sort of group or some sort of collaboration, these labels can be applied to these spaces. The second type of sensitivity label are the so-called item labels. And the item labels can be applied to individual files stored on your personal OneDrive account or on several SharePoint sites, as well as an email or a Teams meeting. Now, when we are looking a little bit deeper in these two kind of sensitivity labels, there are some basic configuration that you can set. So we take, for example, the sensitivity label confidential, which is a group label. So it is applied on a team site, for example, or a shared mailbox or a loop workspace. And the first thing that I can do is I can set some kind of sublabels. So maybe I have a use case that the confidential label doesn't meet my requirements because the configuration should be differentiated between internal users and external users. So I can set sublabels that don't inherit the configuration settings that I set here in confidential, but I can set and deploy different configurations based on the sublabels, and these two labels are the only one that I can apply as a user. So as a user, I don't have the possibility to apply this label, but these two. And for each group label, I have the following configuration settings that I can apply. So the first thing is I can set the standard Teams privacy. So for example, when I have a team or create a team, I can choose whether the team is open, closed, or organization-wide. Okay? When I set a group label of confidential, for example, I can say that the Teams with the Teams team with this label applied has to be closed. So in the team setting, in the UI of Teams, a user and even an owner cannot change the privacy of the team. He has to change the label if he wants to change that. I can also set if private teams should be discovered or not. The standard is without sensitivity labels that private teams cannot be discovered. But if you would like that to be possible, then you can set that, or you can override that standard through a sensitivity label. I can control the access for external users, for guests. So here we are talking about, can a user access a file shared or stored in a group or in a team, for example, fully, so with the desktop application? Is he only allowed web access, or should external users be blocked from using documents stored in a group? I can also set that internal users, or if internal users, should be able to access the information and data stored in a group from unmanaged devices. So we know everybody has some smartphone or a tablet, or uses some private devices where they have their work account installed. So I have my Outlook, my Teams, which I use for editing. I have it installed here on my private smartphone. And if I want to override the possibility that the user can use or can access certain information through this unmanaged device or through this personal device, I can set that through the sensitivity label. And as well, we know that we have the default link for sharing content in SharePoint. This is also a standard configuration within the SharePoint Admin Center, but with sensitivity labels, I have the possibility of more options to choose from which default link should be applied when a document is shared from a certain group that has the sensitivity label applied. Now, when we look at the item label, so we have the same label confidential, but it is applied on a document. Also here I have the possibility to create sublabels. So for example, I have some different kinds of requirements for the HR department as I have for the finance. So here it's the same principle as within the group labels. I can set sublabels that don't inherit the permissions from the confidential document, and these two can only be applied onto the document or onto the email, for example. Now here we have slightly different configuration options that we can set. So here we have the access control, the permissions, which is the big thing with the encryption. So here I can choose, do I want to set the permissions myself and have the permissions as I want them and centralize it, or do I want to let users assign the permissions themselves when they set the label? And within the permissions, I do have multiple options from owner, editor, restricted editor, viewer. I can set custom permissions if someone can print this document, for example, or if he can forward this document, etc. I can set a header in the footer for viewage and also the dynamic watermark. This is the different configuration for item labels. That's why we do this differentiation between group labels and item labels, because the configuration settings are a little bit different. Now, let's look into the limitations. The limitations on one part is that sensitivity labels have no connection to Graph API or PowerShell. So when you work with Microsoft Purview, you know about the IPPS PowerShell connection that you can set for different kind of configuration. In other Purview solutions, sensitivity label doesn't support that. Then the second one is the private Teams channels. So we looked into the group labels that can be scoped into Microsoft Teams team, but these teams or these labels apply only for open channels. The private Teams channels, they inherit the Teams team label. So you cannot set a different label on the private channel as you have in the standard channel. This is a very important limitation. Then some of you guys maybe use advanced encryption technologies, for example, bring your own key for your tenant, or you have enabled double key encryption for sensitivity labels. And there, when you have these kind of encryption technologies applied into your tenant and onto your data, there are some various limitations in context of the permission settings, in context of the configuration possibilities that you have with sensitivity labels. And there is also a limit. Yeah, well, it isn't a limitation, because I hope you never will set 500 labels or you assign 500 labels to one person. I hope that isn't never the case, but it's better to know that there is a limitation. It is quite high. I'm not sure that anybody gets or creates labels that go onto these limitations, but this is it. 500 labels can be assigned per person or per group. Now, let's go into the licensing model, because this is very, very complex. So if you have any experience with Microsoft Purview and with any solutions that they're live within, every solution has its own licensing model, and it is so difficult to maintain an overview and maintain outside of what features are actually included in which license. So that's why I built here a little pyramid, so that you can a little bit see how the licensing model for sensitivity labels work. The baseline is the Microsoft 365 Business Premium or E3 license. So these are the kind of the baselines. when you have these licenses in your tenants, you can apply labels manually. So you can configure the labels, be it group labels, be it item labels. You can instruct your users to apply the labels manually. And we have this important part, which is the data and messaging encryption. So when we set permissions, or when we assign permissions, then we encrypt these kind of data, be it emails, be it a document, be it a Teams, that you can use and leverage directly within the Microsoft 365 Business Premium license. Now, when you do have a Copilot license, a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, then you have also a very nice feature that we will dive into a little bit later, which is the inheritance of labels in a Copilot chat. So when you reference free files, or when you reference a file in a Copilot chat that has a sensitivity label applied, the generated response, or when you generate a document from this response, this has also the same label applied as a reference document. Now we have the E5 licenses, or the Purview Suite add-on, which is, by the way, in my opinion, a really great add-on that Microsoft developed. It is on the market, I think, since October or November last year. It costs like $10 or $15 per user a month, this Purview Suite. And here you have some kind of automatic features or auto labeling. So you can assign labels automatically based on different scopes. So for example, if a sensitive information type is matched, or when you have a trainable classifier identified, or you say, yeah, when a document is stored inside X, then it should auto apply a sensitivity label. So here you can override the manual labeling, and you switch the I don't know the word, but you switch the support of how labels are set from the user to the IT department, which monitors the labels. So this is a huge part that you can use with auto labeling. And another part, or another feature that you can use, are some advanced label features. For example, conditional access through Entra ID, advanced encryption like double key encryption within the label. This is not included in Business Premium. And as well, you can use document library labeling with E5 policies, or with the E5 licenses. Then we have one topic, which are the Teams meetings. Teams meetings are neither included in Business Premium or E5. In order to label Teams meetings, you need a Teams Premium license. So on top of the Business Premium or the E5 or the Purview Suite, you need Teams Premium for the label of Teams meetings. I hope this gives you a little bit of an overview on how the licensing model of sensitivity labels work. Now let's dive into the live demo. I do have prepared some little things with you. So you see here I'm in Microsoft Purview. In the information protection, I want to show you quickly how the encryption works, how the configuration works. You see I do already have some kind of labels applied and configured. I hope that, yeah, my internet is fast enough. It should be. It looks like it is really slow. So you see, I do have also a naming policy. So here I see group internal and group vertraulich, which means confidential. This is a group label. So me as an admin, I see directly which is a group label and which is an item label. And I can set some kind of permissions. Now let's dive into the process of creating a label. So I say test, 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 description. Next, now, here is the first differentiation between group and item labels. You don't see this kind of naming in the configuration settings, because you must be aware. These first things are the item labels. Here I can label items, and here these are the group labels. So for this demo, I want to show you both, so that you see how this works. So when we are here on the left side in the items, okay, I can control the access, I can apply content marking, or I can protect Teams meetings and chats. Now, when I want to control the access, I can say, let users assign permissions or assign permissions now. You see here the button assign permissions. I have various permission models that I can choose from. I can also set some custom permissions as I want to. And yeah, I have to choose, okay, any authenticated users, they are co-author. I can use dynamic watermarking. I can use double key encryption. Now, content marking, yes, I want to add a footer, a header, or a watermark. Let's say I had a footer with test. And I can go on, and I can also set the Teams meetings, so who can bypass the lobby. So you know these kind of features or these kind of settings you maybe know from the Teams admin center. Here you can override these kind of policies with the sensitivity labels. Then I go into the group, and here you see the group configuration. So when you remember one of the first slides that I showed with the comparison of group labels and item labels, these are other kind of configuration that I can set. So I can set the privacy for external users, external sharing, private teams discoverability. So for example, I can see the standard link, or not the standard link, this is the Teams privacy. If I want that this label has when it is applied to a team, it should be private. I can choose private, and the user cannot override this setting. I can set external user access here. So for example, I can say which users can be shared the content with. I can say only people in your organization, so this overrides the SharePoint setting, and of course the conditional access and the block download policy, which is interesting. So when I say allow limited web-only access, this is nothing else than a block download policy, because with this I can open a PowerPoint file, for example, in the web, but I cannot print it, I cannot create a copy, and I cannot download the document when this label is applied. And yeah, discoverability, Teams shared channels. So you see that I can see many more things. Yeah, that's how you do it. And then this looks like that. So for example, I do have here a SharePoint site. I don't want to go to the root site. I want to go to the where we have a demo site. So here you see you can set a column in your documents with the sensitivity. So you see in one part which sensitivity label is applied. You can apply the sensitivity label here through the document properties. You can set the label here. Of course, these are item labels that we are talking about, so only item labels are being shown here. And you see, I think it is on this one. Here we are in a group, and here on the top right should come, or it doesn't come, the label. Now this is the new one. Maybe I can show you that in my Teams. That's also not here. Did I just take it away? Okay, then let's try again the group label. So I can go here on Manage Teams into the settings, and I edit the sensitivity label. I can say group internal, and you see I cannot change the privacy. So this is fixed through the group label that I have set. And now when I add this sensitivity label, you see on the right-hand side, here it is, I see the label. So it is visible for the users as well as for here in the SharePoint. It should, it takes some minutes, but it should appear here on the top right as well. So these are the labels that are how they are configured and how they work. Now, let's go into the interesting part. The interesting part is, what are the strategies? What are the pitfalls? What is my experience with our customers? And for that, I have some challenges and best practices for you. So the challenge number one is you've got too many labels and sublabels. We don't have any structure. We have a label for every use case. We want to make it 100% right. And labels are oriented towards people rather than processes. So this is something that I've experienced in my project that I had, and there's a simple solution for that. So I would suggest that you define maximum 3 to 4 clearly defined main labels, and use sublabels only in high priority labels. So what does that mean? You see here we have the labels that have a priority, and priority 0 is the highest, the most should be the most restrictive one. And I would suggest you that you use the sublabels only in the first 1 or 2 highest priority main labels, and not in every one of them. And align the labels and as well the sublabels based on data and processes rather than people or groups. So you saw the sublabel, for example, confidential HR or confidential finance. This could be one possibility. Confidential internal, external, this could be another possibility. Now, challenge number 2. The implementation of group and item labels at the same time. I showed that to you in the demo, and I wanted to show it to you because I knew that this challenge will come. As you saw, I chose all the possibilities and all the brackets that are available with item and group labels. But this kind of configuration increases the complexity for you as admins and the complexity for the users. Because not only is it then difficult to avoid conflicts, technical conflicts in terms of permissions, it also overwhelms your organization because you have to adopt 2 kind of labels and 2 kind of scopes that users have to adapt on how to use these sensitivity labels. So in my experience that I have is first things first, you need to decide, do we need both types of labels? Do we need group labels and item labels, or is it sufficient when we set only group labels or only item labels based on the configuration settings that you can set? The procedure when you go with both is first group labels, apply them, configure them, train them, adopt them, and later apply the item labels. And in my experience, what I did with some customers of mine is real-life testing. So I had one-to-one sessions with power users where I tested the conflicts and the capabilities of the group labels as well as the item labels in the live environment. So this is something that I really suggest you would do before the rollout, that you configure the sensitivity labels, that you deploy the sensitivity labels, but test them first in the live environment before you communicate them to the whole organization or to the people that are faced with these kind of labels. Then the third challenge is the incompatibility between group and item labels. As I said before, there are some complications, and one of them is the incompatibility. So, for example, you have a team that has the group label confidential in it, and you store a document in this team that has the label internal in it. Or vice versa, you have an internal team and you store a confidential or secret document. And these kind of storage, because the user don't know it better, these kind of conflicts arise in the daily work or in the daily business. This is usual. And the risk that we have here is that the permission settings that we set for the group and the item labels, they do not apply. And we have inconsistencies. And here, the priority of the labels has to be really well curated on one part, and in those testing sessions, identify the possible conflicts. Test the conflicts, test it really as you want to. Put or test it when you store a label or when you store a document with the internal label in a confidential team and vice versa. Test it and see how it reacts and how the experience for the user is. The next one is the image and corrupt file formats. So sensitivity labels can't be applied to every file format. They can be applied to Word, Excel, PowerPoint documents, so docs, PPTX and XLSX, and PDF files. They cannot be applied to older Office versions and cannot be applied to image files, as well cannot be applied to other corrupt file formats that may be stored in your SharePoint environment. And for that, there is a solution which is called Azure Information Protection Client that you can install and deploy for Intune managed devices through the company portal. With this, users can not only label images and corrupt files, but also local data within your boundaries that you set in Microsoft Purview. Here is important that, you need to communicate and you need to train also this Azure Information Protection client if you want to install that and if you have these kind of corrupt files or images that you want to label. Challenge number 5, and this is also one of my projects. I had a project where we had 10 people, I think, was it, in the concept phase. We had the Chief Information Security Officer, we had someone from the compliance department, we have the IT, we had the power users, and everyone had their own interests. And we planned for 3 months in the concept phase. At the end, it took us 9 months until we had the concept finalized, because there is always a clash between usability, which is very important for the business, and restriction, which is very important for the compliance. And here it's really important that you allow enough time for the concept. So when you design a sensitivity label project, I would at least calculate with 6 months of conceptual discussions, multiple workshops, to really get a commitment out of all interest parties, because this is the baseline and the foundation for your later technical configuration. Also collect feedback from user groups during the concept phase, because it's not only about what the CISO wants or what the user group, the power users wants. It's with what can the people live with the most and the best of the restrictions. And test this label configuration, of course, record the final commitment in writing form from all parties involved, so that you have a written kind of concept and a written commitment about how sensitivity labels should be configured and which restrictions should come in place. Now, let's dive into the last topic. I know I'm already over 2 minutes. I'll try to make it short. Copilot versus sensitivity labels. So this is just one slide. I will not do a demo because of the time. So how does Copilot work with sensitivity labels? The first thing is that Copilot can only summarize or display content if the user has this permission rights. So we saw, I do the demo now really quickly. We saw that we can apply permissions, right? And these kind of permissions, you find it here. And this should come. This is the extract and view permission. The view permission is always applied. Even when you set custom privacy settings or custom permission settings, you cannot disable the view permission. This is always set. But the extract permission is this one that Copilot needs to summarize or display content. And here, when we go in the label, control access, assign permissions, choose permissions, this is the one that you're looking for. Copy and extract content. If this one is disabled, Copilot cannot summarize files that are labeled. Then, with only view rights that are in place always, Copilot can provide the link and can find the document, but it cannot extract any information. The good thing is also, when he provides the link and I want to open the link through the Copilot answer, the document opens and it says, you don't have permission. This file is encrypted. So you need to use the usual M365 search, or you have to search into your SharePoint storage or in your OneDrive account, wherever you have this document stored, or the email that has the sensitivity label applied when you want to access the information. Then there are also some cases where you put in a prompt in Copilot and you reference 3 files that have 3 different labels applied. Now, we talked about the Copilot, the label inheritance with Copilot, and here the rule is simple. In the Copilot chat, in the answer of Copilot, Copilot only shows the label with the highest priority. So when I have, for example, here applied labels or referenced documents with the label test, internal, and private, he will only show me the sensitivity test because it has the highest the highest priority, is the most restrictive one. This should sensibilize users in that here are documents referenced that have a sensitivity labels applied, and that they should be careful with confidential documents. If Copilot creates new documents based on labeled sources, the strictest label is applied to the new document or to the new email. So this is the same mechanism. It's not only about displaying the content, but also when Copilot generates a new file, for example, or a new email, the label with the highest priority is applied automatically. Another limitation is when you have double key encryption enabled in your sensitivity label, and you do have the extract right here. Copilot cannot read the information because Microsoft doesn't have the second key, and automated services, as Copilot is, are excluded from these from extracting information of this information or of this data that you have double key encryption on. And of course, you have the audit log in Microsoft Purview, where you can see and report which actions Copilot did, if Copilot interactions were there, from which users, in which time frame, which sensitive data was accessed by Copilot. This you can use directly within Microsoft Purview. Now, Drago, I think I do have only until 2:30, right? I don't have time for the demo. Am I right?
Feel free till 45 to use
till 45?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I will do so. Then I will do a little demo here within Copilot. So just for clarification, when we go here back to the demo site, the extract permission that I need for Copilot is not available, or I have it disabled in the private label. In the internal label, I have it. Okay, so now let's take a look how this works. So, for example, I take this document, ownership label, for example, link, copy the link, or I search here for ownership label. I have it here. Okay, that's better. I say to Copilot, please provide a summary of this document. Okay, I'm going to the work, it's better. And then let's see what happens. Okay, I have the private label applied, so the Copilot shouldn't give me an answer. And as you see, he answers in German. I don't know why, because my browser should be in English. It looks like I cannot showcase the label or the file, because I have security policy applied. But I have here the link. Now, okay, let's try the link. I opened the link and I can open it. Why can I open it? This shouldn't be that. Let's try again. Please provide a summary of, now let's try maintenance log over ownership. And which one do we take? We take contract municipality, which doesn't have a label applied. Contract municipality. Okay, now we have 3 labels. Now Copilot provides a summary, but he shouldn't be providing for the ownership label one, huh? Now, yes, maintenance log. Okay, we have information, we have the link, ownership label. I cannot use it. Contract municipality, I can use it, and he gets me the information. Now give me the link of ownership label. Let's see. Let's try it again, because this was the demo gods that didn't want to show me. Okay. Let's have a look. It works again. Okay. This is a pity. Usually, when Copilot sets the label or gives you a link to a labeled information or to a labeled file, it comes here, hey, you cannot open this file. when I open it from the Copilot Copilot interface. So I have here an old chat. Here I have the same thing. I tested it, of course. I opened that, and this is what it should look like. So this file is protected. This is what it should look like. Okay? Good. Then this is more or less that I wanted to show you, how Copilot works with sensitivity labels. Now I go into the Teams meeting. Do we have any questions? I don't think so. So yeah, feel free if you do have any question later on. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can reach me directly through the QR code I provided in the beginning, or directly via Fabio Bonolo. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks for having me, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.